Hey, I'm Sonny, and I'm a RuneScape addict. I've been playing for about 2 years now. Like most people, I played when I was younger, but after a series of bad updates and me getting hacked, I quit. And like a lot of recent players, I picked it up again during the pandemic. I'd planned to play with friends, and I'd assumed I'd only play for about a month or two. And here we are 2 years and 70 in-game days later, and I love every minute of it. I want to tell you all how RuneScape captured my heart and my time. Let's start where everyone did at one point, Lumbridge Castle, as we talk about one of RuneScape's most endearing mechanics in my mind, the interaction. Now, this is going to seem stupid, but I want to run you through the first quest basically everyone does, Cook's Assistant. You see, the cook fucked up and forgot to bake a cake, and as a newly spawned and eager-eyed adventurer, you're more than happy to help. All this quest requires is you to get eggs, flour, and milk. This is a really easy quest, because it should be. This quest teaches you the fundamental interaction of RuneScape, using stuff on other stuff to make different stuff. Use a bucket on a dairy cow to get milk, go yoink an egg from a chicken, and my weirdly favourite part, getting the wheat. See, first of all, you gotta go to the wheat field, pick the wheat, and take it to a windmill. Go to the top floor and run it through a hopper, pull some levers, and go all the way back down to the bottom. Collect the wheat from the bottom with a pot, and way, you've got the ingredients for a cake. The system of use X on Y for Z is so incredibly simple, but it really engages you in the process of making or acquiring something. You search the world for an item, or if you're sneaky, you looked at the item spawns on the wiki, and you acquired and then interacted with them. See, RuneScape is partially a point-and-click adventure game, where you have to look for environmental clues and items when doing quests or to access specific areas. Whilst point-and-click adventure games can feel vintage or dated to some, with RuneScape's 3D world, I find this system incredibly engaging. This quest design carries on throughout RuneScape's quests, but only get more intricate and interesting as you progress. Except for the quest One Small Favour, that is in fact not a small favour, and actually just 50 minutes of my life that I'm never going to get back. But I did still feel involved the whole time. I'd like to jump over to the main activities RuneScape players partake in: skillin' and killin'. The main numbers people care about are skill levels and boss kill counts. Leveling in RuneScape is the bread and butter of the game. There are 23 skills in Old School RuneScape. They can generally be split into combat skills, support skills, gathering skills, and artisan skills. The categories are self-explanatory except for artisan, that is the act of processing materials gained from other skills. They all start at level 1, except for hit points, and have a famous maximum of 99. For combat, you have the combat triangle of skills: ranged, mage, and melee. Also prayer, but we'll get to that in a moment. For non-combat skills, they cover basically everything you can do in the game. Want to unlock all shortcuts across the land? Train agility. Want to cook the best food? Cooking. And if you want to steal from all the innocent civilians across the world? You've got thieving, weirdly. Everything you do in RuneScape is getting you XP. It might not be a lot of XP, or fast levels depending on what you're doing, but every single action is directly contributing to making yourself stronger and more well-rounded. Being honest, living in the age of live service games has rotted my brain. Unless I feel like I'm directly making progress, or making some arbitrary number or stat go up, I almost feel like I've wasted my time. Everything has a battle pass, account rank, or player retention mechanics that are just designed to encourage playtime without substance. But RuneScape? RuneScape's just grindy as fuck by its nature. It was designed like that by some guys from Cambridge that legitimately never thought someone would get a 99 when they first made the game. The number 99 is incredibly synonymous with RuneScape, but a fact that RuneScape players know all too well is that half of 99 is 92. And whilst I may be garbage at maths in real life, in RuneScape, 92 really is half of 99. You can imagine my disappointment when a friend first informed me of this fact when I was level 60 in strength, and then I was barely a quarter of the way there. But the thing is, like everything else I've mentioned so far, I fucking love it. Sure, the time commitment for some skills is stupid long, but in RuneScape, you do what you want to do. For example, some players have level 3 skiller accounts, where they don't do any combat and only do the other skills. That's a justified playstyle and goal. On the other hand, there's certain combat-only accounts. Once again, still valid. RuneScape allows you to play the way you want to, but also encourages trying all the skills to see what you like about them. In order to complete all of the quests in the game and get the fancy quest cape, you have to have a well-rounded account with many skills at level 70. By this point, you've tried all the types of content and have a good feel for what you do and don't enjoy. Take Hallowed Sepulchre, a late-game way to train agility. Now, it's a universal fact that everyone hates agility. That shit is boring as hell and not really AFK like some of the other skills. But Hallowed Sepulchre turns what would be clicking on green boxes to do parkour into a tomb-raiding, trap-avoiding test of skill and game knowledge. Because all skills have high and low intensity training methods. methods. Some methods give more gold rather than XP and vice versa, and it's up for the player to decide the balance they want to strike for the goals they're trying to achieve. Now, when I've talked about RuneScape raids with friends that don't play the game, they look at me in disbelief. They can't comprehend how a game that on the surface just looks like a turn-based waiting fight simulator could have high-end content. RuneScape's skill ceiling has grown exponentially since people were kids just stabbing the fuck out of goblins. Take for example the prayer skill that I briefly mentioned. Prayer is a skill that allows you to give yourself varying buffs during combat. Most of them are minor stat boosts, but there are 3 that are essential for endgame content. Protection prayers. Protect from mage, range, and melee. When using one of these prayers, you take 0 damage from monsters that use that combat style you're praying against. Sounds pretty overpowered, right? Because it fucking is. But it also drains your prayer bar, that you either need to visit an altar to recharge or to drink a specific potion to restore. Now, without going into a mini essay about how RuneScape servers work, RuneScape works on 0.6 second ticks, where the information you send or receive is updated every 0.6 seconds. This is why some people tend to feel like the game is laggy or unresponsive, because they've been spam clicking the fuck out of something and sending too many conflicting requests to the server. But you see, some smart motherfucker learned that if you flick your prayer on and off at 100 BPM interval, you don't lose any prayer points at all. This means you can maintain a damage buff and negate or reduce damage from bosses. This, combined with years of boss iteration from the developers, have turned high-end RuneScape into a 100 BPM rhythm game. It's hard to explain to someone who's never played the game, but once you learn this and practice on bosses, the game feels completely different. You've become the tick, moving between bosses' attacks while they throw a variety of ranged mage and melee attacks at you. You effortlessly change between prayers, negating damage and feeling like a fucking champion. Alright, well I've talked enough about skilling and killing for now. Let's jump over to RuneScape's main element for me, the economy. Money makes the world go round, and RuneScape is no different. If you're playing a regular account, you'll have full access to the player trading hub and one of the most iconic places in the game, the Grand Exchange. As a wise old man once said, nothing in life is certain, except death fees and the Grand Exchange tax. In RuneScape, your goal is to make the numbers go up. This involves a lot of leveling stats to do specific content, but for the most part, to get to that content, you need money to get better gear to fight stronger enemies, to make more money to get better gear to fight stronger enemies. You see where I'm going with this, right? And the Grand Exchange facilitates this with the idea that if the item can be traded, you can buy it off other players for a price. Any loot you get, you'll sell on the Grand Exchange. And if you're not having any luck getting the item drop you want, save up your gold and buy it there. This is the beating heart of RuneScape, filled with bright-eyed noobs, cold-hearted scammers, and so many spam bots. Like, Jagex, for real, fucking do something about this. It's not even funny anymore. Hot take. Basically, everyone that played RuneScape as a kid and got scammed is almost certainly anti-crypto and NFT. The life lessons I've learned from RuneScape and its shady-ass player base is unreal. Money doubling scams, someone offering to trim your armor for free, or even pretending to be a girl and asking for money from you. Please, GamerChick562, if you see this, respond to my messages. I know you're real and not just some 40-year-old dude from Minnesota. But RuneScape is one of the best examples of a classic life lesson. If it seems too good to be true, it almost certainly is. There's even players who are merchers, who flip items on the Grand Exchange, buying at a low price and selling at its peak to make good chunks of profit with very minimal effort. Unfortunately, I know nothing about that myself, because the sword I bought at 90 million dropped to 60 million and I've been regretting it ever since. The adage of you've got to spend money to make money is incredibly true in RuneScape. Say I'm going to do the latest raid, Tombs of a Masket. At a rough estimate, it costs me around 200 to 300,000 gold per run, with my average reward being around 150,000 to 300,000. If I don't get one of the high-ticket valuable items, that is. Now, with a good chance to not make my money back, you might be curious as to why I'm throwing money away and not breaking even. Because at its core, RuneScape is just gambling, baby. Everything in RuneScape is gambling. As per my last example of doing raids to get unique high-value items, whilst the drop rate for a unique in the latest raid is roughly a 1 in 42 chance if you're doing it on the standard difficulty, you have an inherent supply cost going in for potions and supplies to survive, as well as, for example, more expensive ammo for a weapon to make it do more damage. You can adjust and optimize this to make a run cheaper but maybe less efficient, or more expensive but faster. You're putting money and time in return for a chance of getting that big money item. Or, at the very least, trying to break even in cost. But when you do get one of those high-ticket valuable items, it's a super fun experience to share with friends.
And they also hit before they've actually hit the ground.
Yeah. If Cam can do this without dying... Nice.
Yeah!
What? Let's go! Blowpipe is meant to be higher DPS on under 30. Okay, killing blow. Oh! Let's go!
Fucking go! Bro, 5k saved.
Now you could view the drop rate as that 1 in 42 I mentioned earlier, but there's also another common phrase used by RuneScape players and gamblers alike. The drop rate is 50-50. Either you get it, or you don't. That phrase is used by people coping after going 3 times the drop rate on an item they just can't get. That does include myself, by the way, and I'm still kind of annoyed that I spent so long killing vampires for a blood shard that has a 1 in 1,500 drop rate, and at over 3,000 kills, double the drop rate, I got nothing. But my dryness on a drop is nothing compared to the length some people have gone to get items. For example, one of the most notorious grinds for some people is the Dragon Warhammer. You have to kill this enemy, Lizardman Shamans, and the Warhammer has a drop rate of 1 in fucking 5,000. Some people have gotten insanely lucky, or spooned as it's known in RuneScape. They could, for example, get it within the first 100 kills. But some poor souls have been torturing themselves, killing them over 15,000 times without a single crumb of the Warhammer. Since we're talking about big drops and big rewards, I'm going to talk about a section of the game that's been sadly neglected. Not as popular as it once was, but still a very active and passionate section of the community is player killers, or PKers. You can find them in the wilderness, which we'll get to in a moment, or in PvP worlds. Now, PKers fight each other to the death in a test of skill with a sprinkling of luck. Dying in PvP causes you to lose all of your items, except the 3 most valuable ones, unless you're the one initiating the fight against someone. Doing the initiating skulls you, which means that if you die, you lose everything you have, unless you're using a specific prayer to protect 1 more item. Is this reminding anyone of Tarkov's secure container? So the reward for killing someone is their stuff. Now back in the day, it was people in mismatched gear taking whatever they had and fighting for the fun of it. The loot was a bonus.
Can't AGS 76, mate. They've been tracked.
I can't AGS 76, did you just say?
73, I'll risk it for you. I quit RuneScape. I quit RuneScape.
You little ginger prick!
Nowadays though, just like PvM, RuneScape's PvP skill floor and ceiling are exponentially increased. It's so hard to describe everything that goes into it, but imagine it as one of the most complicated versions of rock, paper, scissors available. RuneScape has the combat triangle of mage, melee, and range that we talked about earlier, each being strong against one of the other types. In PvP, protection prayers negate 40% of the damage done by that style, so camping on one type of attack is a waste of your time, as you're just not effective. So now you have tri-breeding, swapping between ranged, mage, and melee to counter each other mid-fight, whilst praying against what the other person is using. Even as an avid RuneScape player, I conceptually understand it. In practicality, I'm so fucking confused when I watch some absolute gamers do PvP on YouTube. There's also staking. Staking is when 2 players agree to hold a large amount of gold on them and fight where the winner takes all. This could be as small as a couple million gold, all the way up to multiple billion gold in valuable items. For reference, the most expensive item in the game is 1.3 billion gold. And unless you get spooned, the average player won't see one for a long time. But these PKers are duking it out on the regular, for more money per 5-minute fight than the average player that kills bosses will see in a couple days. But there's one place that's so iconic to RuneScape that we need to talk about. The place where PKers have been left to rot after receiving like 2 proper PvP updates in the last 3 years. The Wilderness. This is one of RuneScape's most notorious areas, where PvP is enabled for everyone. This place is fucking awesome, and also kinda dead content. Conceptually, this area is amazing. Once you cross this ditch, PvP is enabled for everyone inside. Close to the ditch, you can only attack people that are the same level as you, and as you get further and further in, more level brackets can attack each other, until you reach Deep Wilderness, where basically anything goes. When you die in the Wilderness, like getting PK'd, you lose all your items except the 3 most expensive ones. The tension and the stakes behind this area are so cool, and can lead to some really awesome situations. There's a bunch of unique bosses in there with items that can only be gained from the Wilderness. Do you risk getting killed by another player for a chance at loads of money or a unique item that could progress your account, or do you become the PKer and wait in the shadows when someone farms a boss to then jump on them at the last moment and take all of their loot without any of the grinding? The Wilderness is risk versus reward condensed, which makes it a real shame that it's not that trafficked anymore. I mean, there are definitely people in the Wilderness, but the biggest users of it are PKers fighting each other, or gold farmers and PKers duking it out in an area called the Revenant Caves. For another Tarkov analogy, this place is the map Labs. To get into the Revenant Caves, you pay an entry fee that is given to anyone that kills you. In this cave are Revenants, revenants, ghostly enemies with incredibly lucrative drop tables. This is high risk, high reward cranked up to maximum. I've done my share of farming mobs in here earlier on my account, and I can confirm the money is good. But I'm also not that good at dodging PKers, so my success rate wasn't that high. Unlike in Tarkov, it's not as easy to rat and hide from people. See, the issue with the Revenant Caves and the wilderness as a whole is teams and clans. PKing isn't as popular as it was back in the day, so these clans congregate their members into organized groups. If someone is farming in an area that is multi-combat, which means multiple people can attack one person, you'll have one person jump on you, freeze you in place, and then call the boys to all gang up on you. For a while, this cave was infested with protection rackets. You'd pay a clan part of your earnings or a large upfront fee in order to not be attacked by them, and protected from other clans or individual PKers. Now, whilst this was bullshit for people to actually have to play through, that is some fucking sick emergent gameplay. Pure player-driven interaction that can't be forced, only developed through a dynamic and interactive world. But like everything, when there's big money to be made, there's people who take advantage of that for personal or nefarious reasons, which leads us onto the darker side of RuneScape. RMT stands for real money trading, and is the act of trading in-game gold or items for real-life cash or vice versa. And holy fuck, it is so common in RuneScape. Whenever you walk into the Grand Exchange, you have bots advertising gambling with gold or crypto, advertise selling gold for cash and the other way around, as well as advertising services like doing the hardest content in the game for you. For example, the hardest solo content in RuneScape is the Inferno, the pinnacle of player versus monster, and the holder of the most sought after cape in the game, the Infernal Cape. It is the best in slot cape for melee combat with over double the bonuses of the previous best in slot. And I can't lie, for RuneScape, it looks cool as hell. To have someone do this on your account scales in cost, with it being cheaper if you have a strong account with good gear, or more expensive if you have a weaker or specific account build with not good stats or gear. The prices roughly range from around £100 up to about £300 if you've got a low tier account. But I mean, come the fuck on, my brother in Christ, you are paying crazy money to be carried through content in a children's medieval point and click game. Now, this is not to devalue the difficulty of the Inferno. The Inferno can make even the most masochistic video game players look like toddlers. Fuck one-armed Dark Souls runs. If someone has done the Inferno on RuneScape Mobile, then they deserve a crown and everyone's respect. There's been some discussion that RuneScape Gold was the original cryptocurrency, and aside from a lack of a blockchain, I'd have to agree. Bits and bytes generated on a computer have a direct real-world value that can be put in or taken out of the economy. And if you're not aware about Venezuela, respectfully, their economy is in the gutter. The buying power of the Venezuelan bolivar is so low that some Venezuelans actively play RuneScape for a job, because for some of them, they'd be making more playing RuneScape as work than they would doing a regular full-time job. The average monthly salary in Venezuela is $24. The official cost of RuneScape Gold right now is $7.99 for around 7 million in-game gold. This is done by paying the developer that $8 for a bond that can then be sold on the Grand Exchange for a varying cash value. The unofficial way of buying gold scales with how much you buy. But for example, buying 100 million gold from a third party would cost you about $6.80, so about roughly 7 cents per million rounded up. Assuming a 40-hour work week and 8 million gold per hour in a profit at a high end, that would work out to be 320 million gold a month, or $20.50, giving a little bit of room for the gold farmer to lose money, as farmers get less in the equation, with the sellers adding a markup before passing it on to the buyers. Now, I don't support RMT in any form, or the RuneScape black market. Hell, I don't even buy bonds, as why play a game about grinding just to skip the grind? But that's just my opinion. But you can't tell me that conceptually, that's not cool as hell, and also weirdly dystopian. Fuck all that play to earn NFT bullshit, me and the homies be farming RuneScape gold. Now, this isn't really just a play on one account and farm a boss. Some of these Venezuelans are fucking gamers. They multi-box 4 to 8 RuneScape accounts at the same time in order to make a good wage. But all of them pale in comparison to the Venezuelan grandmother farming Zulra for extra income.
¿Cuánto kilos hay, mami? ¿Cuánto? 7 kilos por viaje. A que vean rostro.
I mean, what a fucking beast. I would take her on my raid team any day. Let's talk about the player base, community, and the nature of an MMO. So, RuneScape players are a weird bunch. I know because I am one. Some of them are incredibly friendly, some of them are incredibly toxic, but most of them just keep to themselves. See, RuneScape is basically a single-player game with multiplayer elements. Whilst you see many other players running around the world, interacting and skilling, Almost all of the content in the game is done solo. All of the quests are solo, except for 2 that need another person for a grand total of about 3 minutes each. Bossing, raiding, and skilling minigames are the only social multiplayer content that's done nowadays. This is because some players have got lost in the sauce. The sauce being playing as efficiently as possible. A game that was about social aspects and the wonders of an MMO with a world to explore have become pursuits of highest XP per hour or maximum solo resource and gold gain. And I can't blame these people. We aren't children or teenagers anymore. Most of us have full-time jobs and responsibilities. We play how we want. The fact that the game is social is not the biggest aspect anymore. The solo journey is the important part. Everyone I see running across the land of Gielinor, I know is on their own journey. We may cross paths or do content together, but in RuneScape you're simultaneously surrounded by other people, but also alone. And frankly, I love that. I do wish more content was multiplayer, but my progression is my own. I can be inefficient if I want, or I could turbo sweat some content. But either way, it only affects me and no one else. Although, as a note, you probably want to stay away from people that do PKing as their main activity. Some of them motherfuckers are toxic as shit and will tell you to commit rope for even looking at them the wrong way. And contrary to popular belief, from my experience, people doing endgame content tend to be supportive and kind for the most part. I remember when I was learning a boss called the Nightmare. It's one I really love the mechanics of, but learning it can be really difficult for beginners. All I was met with when I was doing it was support, education, and sometimes even free supplies so I could keep learning with them. And because people did that to me, I do it to others. If someone's low on supplies, I can split mine. A new player doing a mechanic wrong, just politely inform them of what to do without being a dick. Now, don't get me wrong, there are many assholes out there that won't help noobs. They'll flame you for mistakes and are generally just all around pieces of shit. But in my experience, the vast majority of players that play RuneScape play and act like they love the game as much as I do. Old School RuneScape only exists now because of the passionate players petitioning Jagex to bring it back. When the petition got heard enough, they put it to a poll, which is the most voted poll in RuneScape history. Because the thing about Old School is that it's the most democratically developed game in my opinion. Every single bit of content is polled. Want to add a new quest? Poll the community. If the quest passes, then the rewards have to be polled too. Poll questions have to get a 70% approval rating from the community, otherwise they won't be added. This is an amazing feature of RuneScape, and one that shows the developers' respect for the community and the community's love for the game. I mean, who the fuck could have thought that in the year 2023, over 80,000 people would regularly be playing a version of a game that came out in 2007? Old School RuneScape regularly has double or triple the player count of RuneScape 3, which is the modern version that's filled with microtransactions, buyable XP, and paid-for gambling that is detrimental to a player's mental health and well-being. This isn't third-party illicit gambling. This is developer-made, directly player-disrespecting gambling. And sadly, it's probably the only reason RS3 is still going, because whales just throw money at the developer for keys to gamble more. The content in RuneScape 3 is apparently really good, but the monetization is a massive detractor for a game that already has a subscription cost. RuneScape 3 is a disservice to the ethos of RuneScape as a whole. I can confirm this because I've tried the game. I have a variety of levels, and you want to know something? I've only ever trained one skill, which is dungeoneering. I've done it 4 times. All the other skills, I log on, I claim free gambling keys that reward experience lamps in any skill you want, and I just use them all to see how far I can get without actually playing the fucking game. But I'm going to resist the urge to go any further into ranting about how bad RuneScape 3 is, and I'm going to move on to the summary of my experiences. So I've given you a lot of information about different aspects of RuneScape. Some bits I like, and some bits I don't like as much. But I can honestly say, even with the bits I don't like, it wouldn't be RuneScape without them. In a world of tab targeting and action MMOs, RuneScape stands out as a relic from a past age, but one that's still being updated and supported by the developers. Whilst the developer Jagex is not perfect, the dev team that works on Old School are so incredibly passionate. Genuinely some of the hardest working and understanding developers I've seen from any game. They've made mistakes, and they'll make more for sure, but I know that whenever they try something, they're doing it because they actually play and love the game, and they understand what the core community want. People ask me if they should try RuneScape, and being honest with you, it's 50-50. If you like grindy games like I do, then yeah, sure, go ahead. But if your time is precious, or you don't like long grinds, then maybe RuneScape's not the game for you. I'm glad I started playing again, but I've also had many friends try and fail to get into it, and that's not a bad thing. RuneScape's just a different kind of game. All of them factor into making RuneScape one of the most unique MMOs to exist in my opinion, and why even if I ever unsubscribe temporarily at some point, I know that the saying is true. You never truly quit RuneScape. You're just taking an extended break. Thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed and understood the points I've made. Any current RuneScape players are more than welcome to give their opinions or counterpoints in the comments. I've loved seeing the discussion that came about with my Destiny and Warframe video, so if you've got something to say, just know that I read every single comment. Until next time, be nice to noobs, help a friend in need, and don't real world trade.